there is a no-holds-barred, warts-and-all tell-all story waiting to be shared with the world.
The affairs of the royal family tells you that we are living in quite bizarre time.
Ever-evolving soap opera, that is, of course, what's happening over at Royal Lodge.
A single phone call 9 days before one of the most prestigious royal events of the year just shattered decades of carefully maintained family harmony. And what Prince William did to Queen Camilla's daughter Laura Lopes over allegations stemming from a private dinner party reveals the brutal reality of power dynamics within the modern monarchy that nobody wants to acknowledge publicly. But here's what makes this situation genuinely explosive. Laura Lopes, who had spent 12 years helping build the Windsor Spring Gala as the person managing art exhibitions for her mother's signature charitable initiative, received a devastating phone call from Patricia Thornton, Camilla's private secretary of 18 years, explaining that William, in his capacity as Prince of Wales, had demanded Laura's removal from all planning activities and indicated her attendance would be inappropriate due to circumstances that couldn't be discussed. How the catalyst appeared to be a dinner party attended by approximately 20 people from overlapping social circles 3 weeks earlier, where Laura allegedly discussed internal family dynamics, including William's relationship with his father and Catherine's health challenges, with details about the children's emotional responses, why William's investigation traced information that appeared in gossip columns backward to this dinner, identifying Laura as the likely source based on witness accounts, even though there was no recording or definitive proof. And the fact that Camilla's furious confrontation with William at Buckingham Palace in the King's private sitting room became one of the most painful encounters in recent royal memory, because each participant believed with unwavering certainty they were defending legitimate interests that couldn't be compromised. Once you understand why William refused to retreat even an inch, arguing his duty was to the crown and immediate line of succession, rather than extended family members with no formal responsibilities, why Camilla accused him of destroying her daughter's reputation without fair process, and treating Laura as disposable after 20 years without a single misstep, and what it means that King Charles found himself trapped in an excruciating position between his wife's devastation and his son's assertion of authority. He couldn't overrule without undermining the future king. You'll realize this incident exposed fault lines that will reshape the monarchy for generations and revealed William's willingness to sacrifice family relationships for institutional protection in ways that shocked even palace insiders. Laura Lopes grew up at Bolhide Manor in Allington and later Middlewick House in Corsham, both in Wiltshire. She and her brother Tom were raised as Roman Catholics, maintaining lives deliberately separate from royal spotlight despite their mother's eventual marriage to the man who would become king. For over 2 decades, Laura had navigated the impossible position of being the Queen Consort's daughter, with no royal title or formal role, carving out a specific niche, managing art exhibitions for royal events, while never seeking attention or causing embarrassment. The Windsor Spring Gala had been a fixture on the royal calendar for 12 years, established by Queen Camilla following her coronation as a fundraising event supporting literacy charities across the Commonwealth. Held in the magnificent St. George's Hall within Windsor Castle, the gala represented everything Camilla had worked to achieve: relevance, inclusivity, and purpose within an institution often criticized as outdated. The 2025 edition, scheduled for November 23rd, was meant to be the grandest yet, marking the event's 12th year with enhanced programming and an expanded guest list approaching 500 people. Laura had been involved since inception, using her background in art curation to showcase emerging Commonwealth artists. She was respected within royal circles for her discretion and competence, maintaining a delicate balance of being prominent enough to support her mother, but never overshadowing working royals who carried official duties. This careful calibration had served her well, allowing her to contribute meaningfully while avoiding the complications that came with more visible positions. The first indication something was catastrophically wrong came on November 14th, 9 days before the scheduled gala. The phone call from Patricia Thornton was brief and professionally worded, but its content was explosive. William had requested Laura's removal from all planning activities, and her attendance as a guest would be inappropriate given circumstances Patricia wasn't at liberty to discuss. The secretary's voice carried obvious discomfort as she relayed these direct instructions she was obligated to communicate. Laura's immediate reaction was confusion rather than anger. She asked for clarification, for specific reasons, for some context that would make the situation comprehensible. Patricia could offer little beyond confirming that William had raised concerns with the king that were deemed serious enough to warrant action, and the decision was final. Laura was advised to direct questions to William's office at Kensington Palace, though Patricia's tone suggested such inquiries would prove fruitless. Camilla learned of the situation within hours. She had been at Clarence's house reviewing guest lists when Laura called, her daughter's voice shaking with humiliation and bewilderment. The Queen's reaction was immediate and fierce. She contacted King Charles directly, demanding explanation and insisting the decision be reversed. Charles, caught between his wife's fury and his son's apparent conviction, requested a meeting with all parties to address the matter. But William declined, sending word through his private secretary that the decision was non-negotiable, that he would explain his reasoning to the king privately, but would not engage in family debate about what he considered a security and institutional matter. The vagueness of the accusations made defending against them nearly impossible. No specific charges were leveled. No evidence was presented for examination. Laura found herself expelled from an event she had helped build, without clear understanding of what she was alleged to have done wrong. She reached out to William's office directly, requesting a meeting, an explanation, anything that would allow her to address whatever concerns existed. The response came in a brief letter from William's principal private secretary, stating that the Prince of Wales had made his decision based on information he deemed credible and relevant, that he was not obligated to share that information, and the matter was closed. The truth emerged gradually, pieced together from fragments that leaked despite containment efforts. The catalyst appeared to be a conversation at a private dinner party in London 3 weeks earlier, attended by approximately 20 people from overlapping social and business circles. Laura had been present, as had several individuals with connections to media organizations. The dinner itself was unremarkable, but according to accounts that reached William through sources he considered reliable, Laura had engaged in conversation about the royal family that crossed lines of discretion. Specifically, she was alleged to have discussed internal family dynamics regarding William's relationship with his father, about disagreements over how the transition of power should be managed, about William's frustrations with what he perceived as the king's reluctance to fully embrace modernization. More damagingly, she supposedly shared observations about Catherine's health challenges and recovery, including details about the children's emotional responses that were decidedly private family matters. The allegations also included claims that Laura had expressed opinions about the monarchy's future, suggesting William's vision was too radical, that he risked alienating traditionalists who formed the institution's core support. While expressing such opinions might seem reasonable in private conversation, the context mattered enormously. These were insider observations from someone with family access to confidential information, made in the presence of individuals known to have media connections. Within days of the dinner, details that could only have come from someone with insider access began appearing in gossip columns, carefully worded to avoid direct attribution, but clearly based on recent specific knowledge. William's investigation had been swift and thorough. His protection officers and intelligence advisors traced the information flow backward from published articles to the dinner party, identifying Laura as the likely source based on witness accounts and the specific nature of details that emerged. Camilla, when finally provided with specifics, was devastated. She immediately contacted Laura, who vehemently denied the accusations as presented. Yes, Laura admitted she had been at the dinner and participated in conversations that touched on royal matters, but she insisted she had shared no confidential information, expressed no disloyal opinions, and certainly had not knowingly spoken to anyone with intent to leak details to media. The conflicting accounts created an impossible situation. William believed his sources, which included individuals he had worked with on security matters for years and whom he trusted implicitly. Laura maintained her innocence, supported by her mother, who knew her daughter's character. There was no smoking gun, no recording, no way to definitively prove what had been said or intended. In such circumstances, William chose to prioritize protection of his family's privacy over maintaining relationships with extended family members he had never been particularly close to. The confrontation between William and Camilla took place in the King's private sitting room at Buckingham Palace. Charles had hoped a calm environment might ease tensions, but it quickly became clear no setting could soften what was unfolding. Those later briefed on the exchange described it as one of the most painful encounters in recent royal memory, not because anyone behaved with overt disrespect, but because each participant believed with unwavering certainty they were acting correctly. Camilla, ordinarily measured and politically astute, entered already simmering with fury. She had spent decades mastering restraint, transforming from public pariah into respected queen consort. But in defense of her daughter, she showed emotion rarely witnessed by palace staff. She accused William of relying on incomplete information, of destroying Laura's reputation without giving her opportunity to defend herself, of leveraging his position to punish someone with no public platform to respond. William, equally steadfast, refused to retreat. He calmly presented Charles and Camilla with a detailed timeline of the leak, the dinner party, the conversation that took place, the appearance of specific details in press that could only have originated from someone with insider access. He acknowledged he could not prove with absolute certainty that Laura had been the source, but the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. And overwhelming circumstantial evidence was sufficient when stakes involved safety of his children, privacy of his wife, and integrity of the institution he would lead. His duty, William insisted, was to the crown and immediate line of succession, not to extended family members with no formal responsibilities or legal obligations. For him, this was risk management, not retribution, Camilla countered forcefully. Laura had spent 20 years around royal life without a single misstep, contributed with professionalism, and maintained strict boundaries. To punish her so publicly and irrevocably would not only devastate her personally, but deepen the very media circus William claimed to be avoiding. Charles found himself in an excruciating position. He understood William's concerns deeply, having lived through tabloid intrusions that exposed and distorted his private life. He empathized with his son's determination to protect Catherine and the children, but he also felt the humiliation of watching his wife's child publicly rejected by the institution he now led. His proposed compromise that Laura attend as guest but be removed from planning responsibilities satisfied no one. News of Laura's exclusion leaked to press 4 days before the gala, triggering exactly the media firestorm Camilla had predicted. Within hours, the story dominated headlines across Britain and beyond, sparking frenzy of speculation, blending fragments of truth with wild conjecture. Laura maintained dignified silence, declining interviews, refusing statements, avoiding all public comment despite immense pressure. The gala itself unfolded under a cloud no pageantry could dispel. Camilla attended fulfilling obligations, but her usual warmth was absent. Her smiles seemed brittle, greetings lacked ease. William and Catherine arrived separately from the King and Queen, a departure from usual presentation of unity. For those familiar with previous galas, Laura's absence was glaring. The art displays felt curiously disjointed, lacking the intentional flow that characterized her curation. Into this storm stepped Tom Parker Bowles, Laura's brother, breaking decades of public silence on royal matters. His statement, though carefully measured, was unmistakably a rebuke. He expressed unwavering support for his sister and disappointment in the process that led to her exclusion. That he chose to speak signaled the depth of his family's anguish. Princess Anne took on the unofficial role of mediator, speaking privately with William, Camilla, and Charles, attempting to find compromise. But she quickly discovered both sides were entrenched. William stood firm. Camilla, equally resolute, insisted her daughter couldn't be shunned on unproven allegations. The impasse hardened into matter of principle on both sides, rendering resolution nearly impossible. In weeks following, the incident's reverberations spread through the royal family. Staff found themselves working in an atmosphere of heightened suspicion. Camilla's relationship with William suffered wounds many believed would never fully heal. The episode cemented growing perception that William was willing to make difficult decisions with clinical efficiency, representing either necessary strength or troubling callousness depending on perspective. Laura gradually rebuilt her professional life, deliberately seeking work far removed from anything connected to royal patronage. The incident accelerated internal conversations about the monarchy's shape under William's eventual reign, signaling his intention to preside over leaner, more controlled institution, centered tightly around direct line of succession. Years later, historians would cite the Laura Lopes incident as turning point in early 21st century royal history, marking the moment when William's priorities became unmistakably clear: institutional protection above family harmony, security over sentiment, structural clarity over traditional loyalty. That's it for today, folks. See you in the next video.